All right, what's going on, everybody? We are back again for another episode of the BroxtenDigital show. Up to, I believe, yeah, we're on episode 7 now of the show. The weeks have been flying by. It's been a ton of fun. I've been learning a lot. I hope you guys have been too. And we got another awesome guest lined up. I know we've heard a lot from agency side, sales side, all over the advertising world. Today, we're going to get to hear from somebody who's had a little bit of a unique route in marketing and advertising, kind of paved their own way. Now they're a director of advertising at an investment firm. And he just has a lot of cool kind of things throughout his career that really go to show that, if you put the work in and put yourself out there and do a lot of the things that a lot of the professionals have talked about already in this show, you kind of end up in positions like our guest today is in. With that, though, ladies and gentlemen, I'll kind of let him self introduce as well. Matt McCormick.
Man, you said you're gonna hype me up. I didn't know that was coming. Appreciate it, man.
Heck
How we
yeah.
doing?
Happy to have you, man. Good, man. So happy you could join us tonight.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm Matt McCormick. I'm director of marketing at a larger investment advisory firm in Scottsdale, Arizona. I have a finance degree from the University of Cincinnati. Graduated in like 2018. Feels so long ago now. I like like you said, I ended up in marketing in like not your typical route that most people do, where they go and get the marketing degree and then they end up, just going through the ranks within, the business world all the way up into you know, the the marketing ranks. I don't even know if I could tell you what all the marketing ranks are throughout it.
It's crazy. Like you have such a unique position yourself. Like it just goes to show there's so many paths you could take in marketing and advertising. But there is kind of that
Yeah,
typical, you get your degree, you get the corporate job and just kind of work your way up. But
yeah,
no, continue, please. I would love to kind of hear, how you got into that.
yeah. So I'm gonna work backwards, I guess, of how it would be. So
Yeah.
I'm a director of marketing right now. Prior to this, I was in a operations role at the same firm I'm at right now, taking calls from our advisors, opening up accounts, doing trades. How I transitioned from that role was I overheard that they had a issue with a couple of ads that they were running, and I heard that they had a broken funnel. Is almost is how I would describe it. And I took a look at it and I saw that there was I saw there wasn't a sign up like for the actual form that they were doing. I was like, okay, well, this is exactly why. Uh, while I was in that operations role, I kept feeding. My cousin is the co-CEO at the company, so have a little bit of a pool, I would say there. But the I kept feeding him more and more and more marketing ideas, just because that's how we're taught at the company that I'm at. That you want to think like you're a like you're the CEO of the company. I think NASA has a similar philosophy built within like their values at their company, where no matter if you're the janitor or uh, you're someone on the marketing team there, the the if you go up and ask someone at NASA, what's your role here? They're like, we're putting a man on the moon. You got to have that mindset that no matter what role you're actually in, that you are running the company. When you have that type of mindset, then you're gonna you're gonna be you're gonna be inspired to go out and do as much as you can and not just stick in your own job, but do whatever you can to make the best results happen for the company.
No, I love
Prior
I
to
love
that,
that mindset, and
yeah,
I'm happy you brought that up. Just sorry to interrupt you, but just wanted to pause
no,
there
you're
just
good.
because it was such a good point that you made there. Just like having that mindset from like literally janitorial staff to the CEO, everybody on the same page, like that's what creates that power. To, go and do crazy things like a company like NASA. And then another big point you made too, and I preach this all the time, and a lot of the guests I've had on have brought this up, and it's been a big thing throughout their career is bringing new ideas to the table. So many people are like scared or think they're going to maybe get in trouble or kind of be frowned upon for bringing ideas. Like, we're on episode 7 now. You're the 7th guest I've interviewed, and every single one of them has said, hey, I got to where I got because I was the one always bringing new stuff to the table and always bringing those new ideas. And I'm really just starting to identify, and I hope the listeners are picking up on this too, that you got to be that person if you want to move up the ranks and propel yourself into those roles when you're at this stage in your career. But anyways, yeah, I would love to kind of hear as we get
When
into the earlier experience where things kind of started and really kicked off.
when yeah, sorry. Before I go back into further back in my history of this roller coaster, I guess you could say, the you gotta. That's the most important thing I think in a leader is that you have to speak up. You gotta have the mindset that whatever that voice that's inside of your head that does not matter. That you gotta get out there and put yourself out there. Leadership's one of those things that you can't really practice it. You have to just do it. And it's one of those things like you got to be the one that gets your hands dirty, speaks up, brings up ideas, and continues to have that mindset that you are going to do what's best for this company at all cost.
Yeah, no, I love that.
Yeah. It takes a lot of courage.
It does. It does. I think one of the big things is like really getting comfortable with like being your authentic self. I've kind of found that there's this one dude that I follow on LinkedIn, Mason L. He goes by, big meta ads guy. And he posted a video recently that said, being yourself is kind of a cheat code. Once you like lock in on every conversation, you're just authentically you and bring that to the table all the time. Doors start to open that weren't there before. So, that's kind of, in my
Yeah.
opinion, the way to kind of get that pressure off yourself and start opening up and bringing those ideas to the table is just be yourself, and when that idea pops in your head, say it.
Couldn't agree more. It's right on the nose with it. So
Heck
yeah,
yeah, awesome. But yeah, so
before
where
that
were
I
we
was
at?
an ad
We're director back
yes,
to
director to operations role. Prior to
okay,
that, I was an admin at a national wide media buying agency. We had
okay.
accounts that were like Chevy, B-Dubs, and that gave me a really cool perspective because it taught me a little bit about the traditional advertising space. The company isn't that way now, but if you think about the how I saw it, it was almost like they were Mad Men back in the day. If you've seen the TV show Mad Men,
Oh, yeah.
it's that's the type of company they were. So yeah, the so I was a admin at the media buying agency. The prior to that, I was also a life and health insurance rep. I was god awful at it. I was terrible at sales. And when you're 22 and you're trying to sell, life insurance to your friend's family and you don't come from an area that has a lot of wealth, I would say, that it's a recipe for disaster. You got to really have that drive to be in that type of space. I respect everyone that's in it, but it's being at 22 and trying to, bring people that are in college from that or straight out of college to that type of role. Not many will make it through.
Yeah, definitely. I've
Yeah.
seen so many scenarios of where somebody early and they're interested in advertising marketing, and it's definitely a little bit easier to break into sales in my opinion. There's a lot of companies out there looking for entry level sales roles, and a lot of people end up in like that first role out of college being that tough sales job. I don't know. I have heard this though. Did you like gain some pretty good hard skill takeaways from that when you were working in
Uh,
sales early on?
you learn no really quickly. You got to
Yes.
get you got to get some tough skin and learn that you're going to get a lot of no's, but you got to get a lot of no's to have those yeses. So there's a lot you can get from that type of role. It's a lot of entrepreneurial skills that you learn in that type of role. I will say I did have a second run at like my entrepreneur route about 4 years ago. It was when was that? What year is it? It's 2026. I guess it would be 6 years now with COVID. Right when COVID happened, I was at home, still working at the place I am at today. But this is, I just figured out I was about to have our first child. We were about to have our daughter Valley, and I had learned that there was a way you could make money online, just from your house too. So I came across Upwork. I saw that you could be a virtual assistant and like you could pretty much make up your own hours. So I was like, okay, perfect. Like I could do something like this, from 9 to 12 at night because I think that's like Gary V's typical thing. You got your 9 to 5, and then you got your 5 to 12. I think is or he says like 9 to 12. So that's kind of what I was doing. I came across this ad on Upwork that was for a virtual assistant and it was for an Amazon agency. And I had no idea what I was getting into. I just thought I was going to be, kind of answering a couple of emails for this guy. Ended up learning the ins and outs of Amazon, which is where I would really say is like the bulk of my pay per click advertising background had came from. He managed about 10 to 12 different accounts that were on Amazon. And basically, just little by little, I kept taking on tasks from him. And it eventually got to the point where he was just he was just kind of cashing the checks for me. And I was, processing, I was doing everything that we needed to have a company fully up and running on Amazon. He ended up giving me basically the keys to the kingdom, I guess you could say, for this small agency, and was like, "Hey, you can take on these clients." He's like, "There's no point for me to just keep cashing these checks for you." So we ended up coming up with an agreement, and I got the clients from him, and basically was, you know, running my own business at that time. When you're doing that, you start to learn those sales skills again. That's where the sales skills came up for me again, and that's where also like I had to start learning a little bit more the ins and outs of marketing online because the Amazon side is similar to the meta ads and LinkedIn ads that most people that might be listening to this show are used to. You're just dealing with keywords instead of data points on people. For the you still have a lot of the similar metrics where it's like click-through rates. What are some other ones? There's click-through rates, there's average order values. So you're dealing with all the same type of stuff. It's just two different types of ways that the algorithm's working. I guess you could say it's kind of like Google Ads in that space.
No, that's awesome. And one big takeaway that I'm compiling at least is that like these opportunities where you learn the most and kind of had the most valuable takeaways were opportunities that if you weren't putting yourself out there and like going out and trying to create opportunities, who knows, you would
Yep.
have maybe never even found that spark for advertising and marketing if you wouldn't have got on Upwork and started sending some applications. Like that is one big thing I'm starting to learn too and really like it's worked for me and I'm really pushing it out to especially people in college or people just getting started. Like right when you're young and you have that extra time, put yourself out there. But, like, the worst you're gonna hear is no. Throwing your name out there can really never be a bad thing, especially in this industry. People wanna help young people who are motivated and wanna go do stuff. And, Matt is a great example of somebody who, when he was young in his career, obviously was motivated, trying to figure stuff out, even had some roles at the beginning that didn't work out. But by putting himself out there, ended up still at a pretty young point in his life and sitting in a director role. So really just putting yourself out
Yeah,
there seems to kind of be one of the cheat codes in the industry.
yeah, it's a little bit of trial and error, but it's also just getting your hands dirty and uh, making sure that you're not one dimensional. That's, I think, the biggest thing with being one dimensional. If you're one dimensional, and with a time like we're in now with AI, like if you're one dimension, that could get completely wiped out just by AI. We're seeing it, in the news every single day at this point. So I would make sure that unless you're a doctor or something, I totally respect those that are highly specialized in a very specific thing. But I would recommend just trying out everything. When I think that's one of the uh, the things that are messed up with how the system is, how they want you to pick what you're going to do for the rest of your life when you're 17 or 18. Pick your major, and technically speaking, it's kind of picking what you're going to go into for the next 4 years and potentially for the rest of your career. When I was 17, 18, I had no idea what a finance degree was going to do. I had an idea that, oh, it's finance, it's money, but it's much more than that. And there's so many different routes you can go within it. So try not to be one dimensional. Of course, it's good to stay focused, but I would be flexible. You got to be, I think it's Bruce Lee's, you got to be water. You got to be able to morph and form depending on what it is.
No, I couldn't agree more. And, there's kind of two things I want to poke at there. We'll start with the more negative one, and the second one will be a little bit more of like the positive side of it. So the first one is just like, one big thing with pivoting and switching and, trying different things all the time is like, it's great you're getting a lot of experience, but at the same time, especially in the corporate world in America, it can be hard to kind of climb the ladder if you're constantly, not going up from that entry level position and maybe just bouncing to another entry level position. What would your
Yeah.
advice maybe be to somebody on, pivoting without making it like a huge career setback and maybe even, growing their career?
I think I would, if you're not trying to totally make a setback on your career and you're going up like the actual corporate ladder, I would recommend trying out those things in your off time. Like, as long as like your company's allowing it, you got to develop those skills somewhere. Obviously, if it doesn't make sense and things are going great in your corporate ladder route, stick with it. As long as you have a passion for it. That's the most important thing with it. But I would I think life's all about, have an adventure in it. So you want to be able to have that time to play and be able to work on different skills. And when you work on skills that you feel that you're not the best at, that's where like the most of your growth will actually come from. You really got to work on those hard things for you.
No, yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself, and I'm glad you framed it up that way. Because then the second thing that I really wanted to talk about was just like we talked about this when we chatted before the show, and it's been a huge part of both of our careers so far. Is like being passionate about continuing your education once you get out of school. Like I know you graduate from school. I just graduated like almost a year ago now, and the last thing you want to do is like sit and watch another lecture, take notes on something. But I'm starting to find out, like you have to keep educating yourself and you have to go out there and find this educational material. You have to find new things you're passionate about and then teach yourself about them. And nobody's really going to do it for you. Like you said it best, like you're just going to be stagnant and one dimensional if you don't do this, especially if you let it compound over 5, 10, 15 years of no learning at all. you're really, if you think about it, still in the same place that you were at when you graduated college if you don't make an effort
Yep.
on that, though. Was just wondering if you have any, like, tips, advice, maybe, like, some resources that people don't really well know about as far as continuing their education with marketing and advertising?
Yeah, so I would lean towards finding a couple courses that are not your typical, go and get degree type of courses. And when I say courses, I don't mean the ones that you like watch like an hour or two videos and, you could get a nice little printout at the end of it. You want to find ones that it's someone that's rising up in the ranks in the space that you're interested in. They usually have this like sweet spot where it's like you have like your gurus at the very top, which the gurus say it's in personal development. It would be like a Tony Robbins or whoever.
Let's just take,
They're
like,
not
yeah, like
gonna
finance, for example. Who is
yeah.
your gurus up there?
Well, that's interesting because I guess you could say, you could say like a Warren Buffett is seen as a guru in that space. But in like our space for my company that I'm at right now, I didn't see someone that is a guru out there. Like there's no one that's the face of this industry. So that's where we had shifted our marketing from being so company focused and brand focused to personal brand focused and trying to make our CEO and our co-CEO the like faces of this industry. Just because I noticed that was a missing piece. I guess going back to the education part real quick, because
Yeah,
I
we
can
will
dive
definitely
all
dive
into
in
that
on that
there. That's a
LinkedIn
whole nother
stuff. We're
yeah,
yeah,
that's a
we're
whole
gonna
nother
jump into that.
route we can jump into. But going back to the continuing education side, 2 courses that I would highly recommend that I feel have made a huge impact for myself were Jeremy Haynes, it's called Master Internet Marketing, and then Caleb Ralston. He's the mastermind behind the personal brands of Gary Vee and Alex Hormozy. He was with Gary Vee for like 10 years, I think, if I'm not mistaken, and Alex Hormozy for I think the last 3 years, if I'm not mistaken, as well. Jeremy Haynes was the first like digital marketer that Grant Cardone had. So these were 2 courses that they were a couple thousand, but they weren't like astronomical prices that you may get from, a guru like a Tony Robbins, where you could be paying 5K or 100K, for certain courses to really get the knowledge that can help you progress in your career. They're like the middle. I always call it like they're not the gurus, but they're not like the 1 hour courses that you get a free to, print out at then.
Like a
They're like
Google
the middle ground and
Analytics
they usually have
certification
like
at
the
the bottom,
secret sauce.
right?
Yeah, they got the secret sauce. And finding those courses that can get you the secret sauce that are right in that middle of going up in that personal brand ladder, I guess you could say, for that space. Those are where you can like really transform and you learn like, okay, these are the secrets I need to know about advertising. These are the secrets I need to know about personal branding. This is how you actually do it. They actually have like a full system. Those were 2 big courses that have really transformed my career.
No, that's awesome, and definitely like some really great points there. Especially, one, obviously bringing up like the fact that you got to invest in your education. People don't really think about it, but they go to college. You might be having fun. There's a ton of social activities, lots of stuff to do that kind of keeps you distracted. But in reality, you might have like anywhere from like $50 to $100,000 you just had wrapped up in the last 4 years. It's
Yep.
crazy to me how hesitant people are to then invest. Maybe even like 500 to $500 in their continued education, but if you are a college student, I will say as well, like start with those free Google certifications. Everything kind of
Yep.
has that spiral effect in advertising and marketing where even if you start at the bottom and just keep going and say, hey, I'm going to do a certification every week, eventually your eyes are going to get opened up to maybe a creator or somebody else who inspires you to go try the next thing. And there's even tons of amazing free courses out there. Like I know a lot of creators are starting to pivot to long form content on YouTube because it's been more popular and gets more views and is more valuable. So, it's really just the matter of, putting yourself out there and like making the extra effort to go and find those materials. And also being
I
willing to
gotta admit,
reinvest in yourself.
yeah,
What
I
were
was
you gonna
gonna
say
say
though?
I always tell people I have 2 degrees. One was I got the finance degree and I got a YouTube degree. And you can learn almost everything in this world on YouTube. It's crazy the stuff that they have the free value that you can find on YouTube and that can help you really progress.
Yes,
If
especially if you're able to identify those creators, like you were saying, who are just starting to gain that momentum and really pushing out a ton of free, very valuable content because it's what's giving them the momentum. And that's the secret
Yep.
spot right there to find that insane value for free.
Then I know the courses that I gave were, 2, 3,000 or so, but if you want a cheaper course, then go with YouTube Premium. It's like $40 a month. It's unbelievable. I got YouTube Premium a couple months ago, and I cannot believe how great that is to have where there's no commercials. You can listen to it kind of like you're, walking and talking. You can have your phone close. Highly recommend that if you want to go that route for getting your continued education.
Okay, yeah, I mean, that's even just like, yeah, a simple thing you could implement and just try it for a month even and start listening to a long
Yep.
form YouTube video while you go on your walk or something every day.
Yep.
No, I love that. Is there any free courses you've taken or seen that you'd recommend on YouTube?
With Caleb Ralston, the one that I had for personal branding, pretty much what sold me was his he's got a 6-hour course, I think, on there. He's got multiple, I think, like 4-hour, 6-hour courses on there on personal branding, and they're really, really good. But he said like he's left so much out of them that that's why he started up the Ralston Select is what his course is that I'm in right now. I would highly recommend going and checking those out if you're into the personal branding space. There is also it's not only just personal branding, but it's branding overall. So I would definitely recommend it. Branding's something where I feel like I lack in. It's I understand there's the two sides of it in marketing. It's like the branding and the marketing. I feel like I have the marketing dialed in, but the personal branding and the really dialing in on like your messaging, your branding inside of there. That's something I know I needed to work on. So I'm incredibly blessed for that course that I'm taking right now.
No, that's awesome, and the reason I asked that question originally was just because that's kind of the secret. I'm glad you mentioned, like, I got it from a 6-hour course on YouTube. There's tons of these 4, 5, 6-hour courses on YouTube, where if you find these people who are offering these pretty highly priced courses, or even some people who are offering, $100 courses, if you dig into their YouTube, odds are higher than not that you're gonna at least find, maybe 50 to 60% of what's in the course and can have a
Yeah.
ton of valuable takeaways. And, even if I had the same thing happen with a creator. Yeah, I watched a ton of his content, joined his course, got way more valuable content, and it wrapped up now, but was totally worth it. And just like I gained so much from his content, and it led me to then make that investment when I was ready for it. So I would say like don't get
If
nervous
you're
about it and just go out there and find those resources.
Yeah, and you'll be amazed at what you can get from it if you are the one that's putting out those 4 to 6 hour courses too. It's going to shrink that gap of the sales cycle if you are putting videos out there that are for for your ideal customer profiles. I think it's 8 to 12 hours of content is what someone has to watch of your stuff to be able to like, okay, I'm more likely to buy from them. That's I think part of his strategy too with him having those 4 to 6-hour courses out there, that it's shrinking that gap so that, okay, I can just put out this one resource, and if someone watches it from beginning to all the way to the end, I am likely to get customers from it. He said he built up his list up to like 30,000 people on his email list just from that one 6-hour course he has there on YouTube. That message, I guess, is more so for the people that are really doing like the short form type of content marketing. That's when you have that. If you split up like 30 seconds, say 8 hours divided by 30 seconds, I think it's like they have to watch like 1,200 videos to get to that point. So if you can start, I highly recommend YouTube is basically the main message of that there. It's going to help you shrink that sales cycle.
Yeah, and it's also where creators are putting out that valuable content for the reason you just mentioned. Like it's out there. It's out there for a reason. And I'm
Yep.
glad you kinda got tactical there and started to talk about more of, some of the stuff that we were gonna talk about as far as, like, LinkedIn platforms, YouTube. Kinda wanna dive in there, though, and just pivot away. I know we talked a lot about your experience, kinda developing those skills, some resources to develop them. But as far as I know you're doing some super exciting stuff now. You kind of alluded to it a little bit, building some really cool CEO personal brands. It's a huge thing
Yep.
right now. A lot of companies are leaning into their employees pretty much being like their own media channel, an employee as a media channel. I know, like, some more viral moments are, like, the Staples baddie, the chick who was posting videos from Staples and went viral, and now she's got a huge role with Staples. Or there was a dude recently who got fired from Whataburger for posting videos, and Sonic hired him, and now he's viral, and Sonic is going crazy, and Whataburger is like down in the dumps with a ton of bad Google reviews and horrible social media reviews. So, would really love to just kind of hear kind of what you're doing right now, and being the director, kind of how you crafted up the strategy and how it's working.
Yeah. So I had realized there's out in the spaces, there's in each industry, there's typically like a handful of guys or even just like one guy that's like the face of the industry. Gary Vee, you could say, is personal branding, marketing. For Grant Cardone, you could say it's real estate. Tony Robbins, personal development. They all have like kind of like these faces to the industry where they're not the companies. Because if you say you pick 10 people off the street, if you ask them who VaynerMedia is, they're gonna, I don't know. But then you go, hey, what about Gary Vee? They're gonna, oh, okay, I know him. It's so I noticed that is how the space was going. In our particular niche of the financial advisors, it hasn't adapted totally to how you see the marketing and like I guess digital marketing space overall. It seems to be very slow. So I was able to get our CEO and our co-CEO like into that space before that wave started coming over. I think you typically see it where this strategy works good in this industry. It hasn't hit this industry yet, but then eventually the wave crashes over and like people are going to start pulling it over. I think it's the, I've heard it multiple times before where it's marketers ruin everything, where once something like comes out, they figure out a way to start advertising on it, or they figure out how to bring more ads to it and really figure it out. That's what I'm kind of doing with it's a financial advisor niche is what we're in. And I noticed there was no one that was a face to it. You have your Vanguards, you have your Fidelities, but there's no faces to them. They're these companies. And when I come across these companies, like any company's social media page, I'm like, I'm not really like tied, like emotionally tied to it. Like, yeah, it's cool to follow it, but they're kind of just posting, whatever. And I'm like, I know there's like a team of 5 people or a team of 30 people, or, if it's some, super corporation, then, they could even have hundreds of people under their marketing team. And I'm like, there's no emotional connection to it. And that's where I was like, all right, let's instead of focusing on our company, let's focus on our CEO and our co-CEO and push them out. And since then, we went from, I think our CEO and founder was at like 5,000 on Instagram, and now he's up to almost 40,000 today. And then our co-CEO went from 10,000, he's up to like 60,000 now. Those are just Instagram. When it comes to LinkedIn, we're using it as our like secondary channel. I'm not putting a huge focus on it right now. We just haven't, we're putting out a ton of content, like 2 to 3 posts a day on each of their platforms or each of their profiles. So it's been a lot to get really caught up. So with that, we really we've been just posting whatever we post on Instagram. We're going to post it on LinkedIn, which I think works still because we show up like I think it's like, what is it? The purple cow, I think by Seth Golden, because even if it's content that's not really typical LinkedIn preferred or what you typically see on LinkedIn, we're going to stick out. And that's kind of our branding of them anyway. We kind of are the, I guess, guerrilla marketers, I guess, like in the financial advisor space. We're not your typical financial advisor coaching platform. We're a training development company. We're an experience company. We do everything where we're bold. It's that helps us stick out on LinkedIn by just posting what we're posting on Instagram directly to LinkedIn. So I will say I haven't paid attention to it as much as I should, but with LinkedIn, I think there's a lot of AI slop from every time I do get on there. I notice like how much AI slop there is. And I'm like, I was like, I end up hopping off the platform and I'm like, I just can't do this. I can't do it as much as I, used to. Once AI came out, I see everyone that's just, doing those long form, posts where it's this long, they trigger the see more, so it clicks down, which LinkedIn's algorithm loves. You use that and you can start getting kind of blowing up on LinkedIn. But yeah, I would say I don't have a great strategy on LinkedIn right now, but our Instagram is where our bread and butter is right now.
Yeah, no, I hear that from a lot of companies that, you kind of get one platform figured out and really get solidified on one
Yep.
platform, and then you kind of flesh out more strategies where if you immediately just try to spray and pray everywhere, a lot of the times you just don't have what it like as far as like the lift that it's going to take for creating the posts and making platform native content. Even like I'm sure with the LinkedIn stuff, one of your plans might be to start making more LinkedIn native content. If you have 7
Yep.
platforms you're juggling between, it can be a lot of work. Another big point I wanted to take away too for the young pros and students that are listening is just it's coming from a director right here. Don't be the person posting that AI slop and just copying what you see every popular
Yep.
like LinkedIn influencer or the trending post that you got pushed on your first post that you saw when you opened the app. It's great to take what's working for other people and replicate it, but like it's starting to be very easy to catch up on at this point. We've all, especially the people in marketing and advertising, have seen AI. We see how it works. We know the tells. So if you're really trying to get noticed by people, like Matt, don't be the person spamming that LinkedIn content that just isn't resonating. Put your
Yep.
thoughts out there and share your honest opinions. I've been doing that a lot and have seen some great results. So I would totally just recommend don't be that person and put your honest opinion out there on LinkedIn. Nobody's going to judge you for it.
It's something I was gonna try. It, I will say that I haven't built up my personal brand yet. Like I really haven't done a lot of posting just because we're such in a strict industry. I don't want to. have to go down that rabbit hole with like compliance and everything. So what I would recommend to someone is try posting on LinkedIn, say for like 30 days and only do video. Like and do it do it outside of your office, do it outside of like what you would typically see. I think the more that you stick out there, the more that you'll actually get noticed. So if you stick to video, don't do the long from text, like, where it's an explanation that, you went and got a burger or whatever. And it's, I, there was this one time I had a burger and then it's like the see more button. And then it just goes into like some AI jargon after that. I can't stand it. So yeah, definitely.
No, I've seen it, and that's kinda what it is. It's like the same case study packaged a little bit differently with, like, the 2 or 3 word sentences, choppy, like, sentence, sentence, sentence. It's pretty easy to catch on, like, it's blatantly obvious nowadays.
I think that's not even the worst part about it is I think that's not even like who the actual person is that's posting it either. Like, I know they're trying to fit in and trying to do it, but when you go on LinkedIn, there's the typical, it's kind of like you're throwing your suit on, I guess you could say. People like working with people that are like them. What I've seen in most cases is I'll come across this guy, he seems like he's a, suited up type of guy and, he's all business and everything. But then like if I see him outside of my normal element that I usually interact with him, we're, two humans and we, like I run into people at like sports games or whatever. I'm like, oh, like, we connect on that type of level. When you post that type of stuff where you're posting stuff that you like, stuff that, is your true authentic self, then you're going to be able to really you're going to attract those people even on LinkedIn. So that's my stance with, LinkedIn right now.
No, it goes back to that point we were making earlier of just like being your true authentic self is really the best way to put yourself out there. If you're gonna do it, just be yourself and actually put yourself out there, and it opens doors and creates those opportunities. It's been insane the snowball effect I've had. Like my first role when I graduated college, I did a little bit of LinkedIn in college, but then my first role, I was like 2 or 3 weeks in and, first role is usually pretty slow, kinda learning the ropes, hopping in a lot of training meetings, that kinda thing. And I was like, I think I'm just gonna commit to doing 3 posts a week. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I'll hop on during like right after I get done with work at 5 and just spend 20 minutes writing a LinkedIn post. And, that really is what kinda spiraled into this whole now I'm sitting here interviewing you for our 7th episode of the podcast. If I wouldn't have started doing those 3 posts a week and seeing that traction there and seeing the gains I got from that, I don't even know if any of this would have happened. So, kinda like you were saying, just I would say make that jump and, like, commit to doing something for 30 days, and you'll probably be pretty surprised that, what the outcome will be.
Yeah, and it just that's where I saw LinkedIn as a good use case for myself because I had I had a couple conversations with some people where I was like, man, I really like need to work on like my public speaking and getting out there and working on this type of stuff. And that's how we ended up connecting. I was like, I did a search on LinkedIn. I was like, I wonder if there is a marketing podcast out there that someone's looking for guests. I was like, there has to be. And I ended up scrolling through a couple. I think I reached out to like two or three, and I came across you, and I shot my shot. That's what you got to do. You got to take chances, and you got to work on stuff that you don't want to work on. I do not want to work on being up in front of crowds or being up in front of large groups and having to do my public speaking. But this is another way that I can, really iron my craft, I guess you could say, as I continue to grow in this space.
I
So
applaud you for that.
appreciate you being on there.
No,
I
heck
guess,
yeah.
LinkedIn is a blessing for myself there.
It was so awesome for me when you reached out. I was like, that is exactly like I'm looking for the people who are passionate about helping the next generation and wanna do it even without being asked. So that was so cool for me. And,
Yeah.
it just goes to show that, it's the same translation for students and young pros who are listening. If you're trying to land one-on-ones with professionals or even, like, reach out to a recruiter who's posting jobs and be on their radar, that kinda thing, just like Matt said, just shoot your shot. Like, that's the worst they're gonna do is ignore your LinkedIn DM, and just shooting your shot and putting yourself out there gets you those opportunities. And another big thing too that you said was just like you identified that the public speaking wasn't something you were strong at, was something you needed to develop if you wanted to keep growing. That is so hard to do. I still struggle with that of like you need to sit down and almost like on a at least some kind of schedule every once in a while, sit down and say, all right, this is what I'm struggling with and need to work on, even if you have a lot of good things going for yourself. But yeah, just applaud you a lot for being able to identify that and actually go out and be like, I'm going to put myself in an uncomfortable position and, sharpen that skill.
It's huge props to you, man. You're 7 episodes in now. That's like, 7, 8 hours of content that's on YouTube that was not there beforehand. But I think the biggest thing out of that is it's not what you're trying to get out of it either. It's not like everything I do see on LinkedIn, every time I do logged in, it's like someone's like, oh, like, can I, try to sell you this or whatever. It's like, if you go into it and you have the right intentions and the right purpose of like, hey, I want to do this to help. I truly want to help them. And here's also what I'm trying to get out of it too. That, that transparency can really make a huge difference there. Cause I was not trying to sell anything. And even, at the end of the show, if you ask me where to, what do I want to plug in? Honestly, I'm just going to say, if you want to follow me, you can follow me, but I don't have, anything to upsell to anyone. This is just for the love of the game, is what Jordan, the Kobe's would say. It's for
Oh,
the love
yeah.
of the game.
I mean, that's what makes a beautiful and amazing and giant personal brand. Is like nobody loves somebody who's always trying to nickel and dime everybody. People love the people who genuinely want to help others and do awesome stuff. So like, one thing I'm doing with the show is providing some free resources to professors to share with their students. Stuff like that that, students can pull from. And just my biggest thing was like in college, I didn't always get a ton of actionable insights or stuff I could go implement, the next day or that week when I was in class. It was a lot of like leaving class being like, well, I know the project I'm working on, but I still don't understand this whole advertising thing. Once I started getting those insights and getting the insider knowledge from people in the industry and actually talking about what they're doing on a day to day and how you can kind of take advantage of what's going on, that was where like the unlock happened of, all right, this is how you kind of figure it out and start to get the things that you want out of advertising while also being able to, help others like you said. So I would just, yeah, would recommend going that route for sure if you're somebody listening right now, kind of trying to build your personal brand.
If you need a lead magnet that you could give out to people, create ones for how you do the Riverside and set up the whole channel. I I'm impressed by how you have this all set up and everything. I know of Riverside from before, but it's just, once you actually have a system and you figure it all out, that's a huge cheat code for people and can really provide value. So I would recommend that if you're looking for something else to give out to people there.
That's a great idea because thinking about it, it did take me a long time to figure this out. My plan was to launch the show the first week of January, and I started diving into like my actual content strategy that first week, and I was like, "All right, we're gonna have to pump the brakes and really get a lot of things figured out before we can just start throwing these long videos out everywhere." So that's a great idea, though.
Oh,
Thank you.
I'm dealing with that right now. I I had uh, I guess a third year or a third life crisis is what it would be. It's not a half life or a quarter life crisis or anything like that. But I was ran into that where all these new updates on AI like are coming out like consistently, and it's like by the hour, by the minute almost at this point. I was like, is this what my parents felt like when the computer actually came out? Like I'm like terrified of that. So my wife and kids ended up going back to Ohio for spring break, and I took my Mac Mini that was collecting some dust on it. I'm like, I'm turning this into a cloud bot. I don't know what's going to happen from this thing. I don't know if it's going to, totally wipe everything on it, but I wiped everything on it and, threw it together. And now I'm like, dude, this is insane what this thing can do. So I, yeah, I would recommend diving into things and then figuring that out. Where I'm going with that is I've tried to build up like a couple of apps and a couple of different things, but there's a few little secrets along the way where I'm like, I get it looking good, but then I'm like, I want it to launch, but I'm like, "Ugh, I feel like this is not the right way." And then like I try a new different AI to go this route with it. I'm like, I still don't think this is the right thing. So giving away that type of knowledge that, with what you have here with Riverside specifically for putting on a podcast, putting on YouTube and everything, I would definitely recommend posting that.
No, that's a great point, and, you also brought up another great point there is, like, anytime, honestly, where you're feeling, like, overwhelmed, especially information-wise, or just getting constant stuff stacked onto your plate, one great way to deal with that and kinda get that weight off your shoulders is just start attacking the problem at the head. Like,
Yep.
you were feeling overwhelmed with AI, so what did you do? I'm gonna go and figure out how to build
I
agents on my
dove right
own.
in, dude. I
Exactly.
dove right in. I was messing with AI and, doing typical chat GPT stuff before that point, but I didn't get into like N8N or anything like that, and we don't really use it at our work like that. But now that I did this, I'm like, oh, okay, this thing's a cheat code. This thing can do some magic. It's incredible to see. Can run 6 different agents at the same time while I'm writing up actual emails.
Yeah,
It's
and it
insane.
opens your eyes to, like, how you could scale once you start to figure out, what
Yep.
are these how are these companies pulling this off, especially with AI now, and once you kind of start to have that unlock and maybe find a course that shows you how to start doing, how to build 1,000 web pages within a couple minutes with AI, it's like a huge unlock of, oh my God, like this is how they're doing it. If I can start where I'm at and build up to that, that's kind of the
That's
secret.
that's one of the biggest things I've learned as I've grown in this marketing space. You just got to get your hands dirty. A lot of the times, you got to get in, try the hard stuff, and just test it out. I can't remember where I heard it from, but marketing's just testing. You just got one thing that worked, didn't work, last week or, last year or 3 years ago might totally be a home run for you today. You just got to keep trying and testing and, learning from the past of what you've done. That's where that goes back to the one dimensional thing I was talking about before. You just got to get out there and try stuff. You have to, you really got to get your hands dirty to really make progress in this space.
No, it's a great take, and it's so true. You have to put yourself out there. You have to get your hands dirty and be the person in the trenches doing the work. You don't just get to sit in that director or even like that C-suite spot because you showed up to work every day. You get to do it because you did some crazy stuff and show that you were better than everybody else that's shooting for the same thing. So I know
Yep.
we just got super tactical there, and I love nerding out about marketing stuff. So that was
Yep.
super fun for me, and I hope the students and young pros. There's a ton of takeaways there as far as like stuff you can start doing to get that further education we talked about earlier, or even stuff you can start implementing. Teach yourself a little bit of something and start bringing it to the table at your day job. If you're a young pro right now, and that for me has been something that's been working awesome. Tinker a little bit for an hour after work with some stuff on your personal computer, apply those same
Yep.
ideas you'd figure out or come up with to work the next day. And your bosses will be pretty surprised when you start bringing that kind of stuff to the table. Um, but to kind of move on into the next segment of the show, this is one of my favorite segments. I do it every show just because, like I said earlier, the insights that you can implement right away and just go and be actionable with them were the most valuable to me. And I think when you're a student or young pro, you need stuff you can do right now. You don't have a ton of time to wait. You need to take action and start making a difference. And the second you do that, it's when that snowball effect starts happening. And you look back a year and you're making a podcast, and a year ago, you were scared to hit up somebody on LinkedIn. This is the rapid fire value segment where we're just going to go through, we'll keep it short and sweet, and just go through and provide some quick little rapid fire value that students and young pros can just implement right away, can go out tomorrow in the classroom or the office and start making it happen and, start working towards those director positions that you're sitting in right now, Matt. But I know we kind of touched on this earlier, but I'm sure you have a number one and maybe try to think of like the more affordable aspect here. But what would you say right now is the number one resource that students and young pros are sleeping on to, just keep them up to date on the latest in marketing and advertising?
I would say and this one's completely free. It's just studying people outside of your industry, following them, seeing what they're doing. The You can go out there and find people that are crushing it in totally different under other industries, reverse engineer it to see how it can work back into your space and apply it to what you're doing today. That's, I think, the biggest thing, because especially in the space I'm in with the advisor space, I mentioned it before, but it's kind of very slow moving. And so they don't see those trends. So if you can go outside, find those trends, bring them back, you can really cause a breakthrough in your actual niche that you're in.
That is, yeah, that is so unique. And I don't think I've had any guests or like even myself have really thought of that. Finding something that's working in another industry and using it to disrupt your own. That is an awesome, awesome strategy. And
Yep.
that obviously is super free to do. Just start scrolling and looking up other industries on LinkedIn to start. Um,
Look on LinkedIn. I know this is a advertising show, but something that I found that was really helpful when I first got started in the marketing space, the almost all the ad platforms have an ad library. Just make sure you're going on there, and you can see every single ad that every single person's posting out there. When I figured that out when I was early in the transition from operations to marketing, I was like, "This is crazy. This is a great resource to be able to see out there."
Same.
Because
Even
you
like
have
with
it where it's you.
Meta ads library, you can literally search like for the ads you want to see, and you can find the top performers. Like you can literally see who's killing it right now.
Yeah, there's a handful of times where I'm like, "Ah, I saw that ad. What was it?" And I used to kill me that I wouldn't be able to go and find it because it wouldn't be able to pop up. There's still a few times where I'll do that. I'm like, I know the ad, I just don't know the name of the person, and I don't like I know what it kind of said, but I have to. There was there was one specific ad I had to our our CEO was asking for it. I scrolled and scrolled and scrolled trying to get this thing to pop back up. I could not figure out what the exact name was. So yeah, check out those ad libraries. Those are completely free.
Boom. So yeah, there it is. Two completely free resources. Check out other industries and find trends you can replicate and stay in the loop on the ads library on Meta and all the other platforms that are out there.
Yep.
Another big thing that students and young pros have a huge focus on, and it's something that always gets talked about, whether it be in the classroom or your trainings when you're entry level, is soft skills and hard skills and what you need to master. One's more important than the other in some people's opinion. But to start, I just kind of wanted to go over, what do you think, Matt, is the number one soft skill that students and young pros should be mastering right now to, really set themselves up for success in marketing and advertising?
I've talked about it a few times here within like bits and pieces, but it's just being resourceful and figuring out ways that you can go and create value for others. Like no matter the constraint, like if there's a request that comes in, from my team or someone, in another department of mine, I'm like, I might not know it, but I'll go and figure it out. Just go and figure it out. I think it's information is a bliss these days anyway because of AI. You don't have to only rely on AI. But you can go and figure it out. I remember that we had talks about putting a commercial on like for the Super Bowl. I was like, all right, let's figure out how we can do this. And I reached out to the old media buyer that I had reached out to, signed up with Disney to get a campaign manager account. I was trying everything. And this was like a week or two before the actual Super Bowl. So I had to pull out the resources and figure out, a way to make it happen. There's always a way to make it happen.
I love that. There is
For
always a way.
Yeah, I don't know if you asked about the hard skills too, but for hard skills, I would say don't go after the tactics. I would say, like don't chase tactics and chase trends as much as what everyone says to do. I think what I would learn what your business is like. This isn't in a general sense of marketing, but also just in general in business. But know your main KPIs. Like knowing how your business that you're in, no matter what department you are actually in. If you're a tech person, you're a janitor, whatever it is. If you're in marketing, knowing what your business KPIs are and what actually drives in business, that's that's one of the most uh, useful hard skills I would say is out there. We with marketing, sometimes you don't always know if it's profitable or not. Like you may be driving in a whole bunch of leads, but is it actually profitable? Is it actually working? Are the sales guys actually liking the people that I'm driving to them? Every business type has like a handful of like KPIs when it gets down to it. Like if you simplify everything down. So if it's like if you're in a SaaS company, you're going to have subscribers, usage rates, retention and churn. You're going to have those KPIs. So if you figure out a way that you can provide value in some sort of aspect for any of those, you're going to cause a shift in the business. If you're in e-commerce, it's cost of goods sold, profit margins, and conversion rates. If you're in services, it's utilization rate, client retention, or like average deal size. Every business has a few main KPIs. If you know that business or like business model hard skills, that can really make you a valuable person in the company.
No, you said it amazingly, and it's so true that, like, to put it in a sentence, students and young pros need to be able to, like, translate and read data and figure out how it is and when it is driving business results. At the end of the day, that's what we do as marketers and advertisers is figure out take data and figure out how to drive better business results with the data. That's really what you're doing at the end of the day, and that's really just something you learn by doing it. And it is truly a hard skill that once you kind of figure out, I can look at a sheet of data and identify 3 to 4 different trends that we can optimize towards. That's huge, especially as a young pro, and allows you to bring those ideas to the table that we've talked about so much in this episode. And I'm glad you brought up hard
Once
skills too.
you know those
That was the next one I had for you. So I'm glad you pivoted right there.
the once you know those KPIs, what the biggest thing from there is you can do about like a bottleneck analysis and you can just figure out where is this getting stuck at and like where would cause the biggest breakthrough. And third, you could also figure out where you are like where are we closest to the money like when it gets down to it of like, getting more sales. What can cause a huge shift to, provide tremendous value to the company.
And one big point I
You
wanna
know,
make
this
too, especially for the people in their entry level roles, is that it's not always what you're optimizing towards with your marketing campaigns. Like, let's say you don't talk to your client and you work for a big agency and you're the one managing an awareness campaign. You might have the false fallacy early in your career that this is what this brand does. They're worrying about impressions. They just want to be seen. When really, if you sat down and had a conversation with the person that's in charge of making sure, the return on investment for marketing is there, they probably have a whole list of KPIs that they're following and making sure are hit that you might not even be aware of. So I think it's really important to dig in and really know the business that you're marketing for, not just knowing what the marketing best practices are, but how businesses in that field are succeeding in general is super important to know, especially early in your career when you're trying to make a name for yourself and establish that, you know what you're talking about. Um,
Yep.
Kind of for this next one though, it's the last one here is just what would you say is, in a sentence, just one actionable tip you have for a young pro student right now who just wants to strategically, grow their audience and personal brand that, maybe you've implemented yourself recently?
Not to steal Nike's slogan, but just do it. Don't overthink it. Just do it. Stop thinking and just do it. The more you think about it, the more that you're gonna get hung up about it, the more that you're gonna think, "Oh, I need to go and," if I'm trying to create content, "Well, the lighting isn't good. This and this." It's like, "Well, no, you can do it by picking up the phone, doing this, and just go." And the more authentic your stuff is like that anyway, by you just doing it, you're gonna be able to show up in the right way for the people on social media.
I love that. And I mean, that kind of wraps the value segment there. And for everybody listening, go back and listen to that, whatever 5 or 10 minutes that just was. And like, you literally have probably close to 10 things you can go and start implementing this week or this month that are going to get you closer to working to those director roles or, even just, breaking that shell and be like, finally putting yourself out there. It's almost like a weight off your shoulders. You post those first couple times on LinkedIn, you get a positive comment or you get a post that blows up and gets a couple thousand impressions. It's like, all right, this wasn't that bad. I can do this and happens a lot faster than you think. So happy you brought that up. But
Yeah,
with
or
that,
hop
right?
on the show with hop on the podcast with Broxton.
Heck
That's
yeah.
another way you can make your way. Yeah.
Yes, anybody, any of the pros out there listening, hop on the show. We'd love to get your insights, especially if you want to help this next generation who's trying to figure things out right now. But yeah, so to wrap up here, just kind of moving into the closing segment here. I love to kind of close things out with this one question that I identified as just like when I was in college and doing these one-on-ones with pros, and then even as a student or even as a young professional now. I still ask this to a lot of people I meet. Honestly, whenever I meet somebody, I try to ask it to them eventually, at least, just because it is a bit of a personal question. But um, I got the most valuable insights from this. I took stuff from this question, and it's literally what I think landed me jobs when I was like doing interviews and things during my senior year. So to get into it though, after all your experience, you're sitting here, kind of getting into what you want to do in marketing at the director role, kind of figured out what you're doing, what you love. Looking back though, and obviously you can't do this, but what is the number one thing that you would have done differently when you were at that, 20 to 22-year-old stage just breaking in where you're super motivated and excited, but you're also extremely ignorant? What would you have done differently and what difference do you think it would have made right now?
I would have been focused on the future and not the present, and set a goal that's so far ahead that I didn't even think is possible. I would I would see how, like, if you're going to continue to be in school, then finish up school, but also have, like, start working on stuff that you can do while you're in school. You have so much freedom and time at that age, and if you can gain up that experience and get some results under your belt rather than just some random small experiences that are jobs on paper, I think that really shows. And by doing that, you'll start to gain those soft and hard skills that we talked about, but you'll be able to get yourself out there and get used to building connections too. Honestly, if we've grown our marketing team from, I think it was like 2 years ago, we were like a team of 3, and now we have, like, I think, like 6 or 7 of us total, I guess you could say. It's kinda split up between marketing, brand, and also production, but I'd say like 7 or 8 of us there. But when we were interviewing people, I honestly didn't look at their application. The most important thing was, like, the person of who they are and if they're, like, are if they're a true grinder, if they got that it factor. So how you show up in the actual interview was more important for myself for when I was looking for someone that, is coming into a new role here at our company.
No, I love that. And that I've kind of heard that from a lot of pros. It's just like looking back, there's so much focus on the present when you're at this age, or especially when you're in college. For me, it was a big problem. Is like you're constantly hyper analyzing everybody around you, what they have going. A lot of people you're in classes with might be getting internships and you don't even have an interview lined up. That was the position I was in my senior year. I was working
Yep.
through my capstone project, and I had a classmate literally going to interview in New York. I had classmates interviewing all over the place, getting ready to move to Chicago, and I still hadn't even got a response on my 100 plus applications I sent. So taking that time when you're at this
Yep.
age to do that is just it's a game changer.
There's nothing easy in this world. You're gonna put the time in one way or another. So the earlier you start putting that time in, it can help you get ahead.
And, like, to
It's
put it in
uh,
perspective, Matt, too, like, when we hopped on this call originally to start recording the show, like, you were literally like, "Yeah, I just got the kids out of here." Like, you don't get this time back. You're at a point when you're a student, or in the
oh
first
yeah.
couple years of your career where you can actually sit down at night and get 2 or 3 hours to yourself to run through a
Yep.
course. When you have a what'd you say, 3 and 5-year-old running around, you don't get to sit down for
Yep.
3 hours with no loud noises. So, take advantage of it while you
Yep.
can. You're in, like, a unique, very, like, valuable position being this young and having the time on your plate.
Yeah. I'm eternally grateful for what college brought to me though. I've went through like three different colleges in 6 years. Uh, Technically a 4 year degree, but a couple extra years there due to having so much fun. But eternally grateful. I met my wife, out at Ohio University in Athens, Ohio. So shout out to the Bobcats. Shout out to the
Heck yeah, go
Bearcats too.
Bobcats.
Yeah.
Yeah, big
So
Sparty fan, big
yeah.
Sparty audience, not much to say about the other big Ohio school, but I will definitely say go Bobcats.
I'm an Ohio State fan as well when it comes to football. No bad blood with Michigan State per se.
We can
It's
agree on one
the
thing, I
team
think.
up north. It's the team up north that we don't talk about.
Yes, yes, we won't even mention their name.
No.
Heck yeah, well, again, Matt, that was really all I had for the show. Thank you so much. This was such an awesome episode, and I really hope to the students and young pros out there listening, like, take what Matt's saying and, like, just apply what he's saying. You don't have to like hyper analyze it or think super deeply on it. He gave you a ton of insights in this past, 1 hour that you can literally start doing tomorrow. So take what he said and I would just say run with it. Like maybe even identify 3 key points and, even one thing that you're going to commit to for the next 30 days, like Matt said. And I promise you'll notice the difference at the end of the 30 days. But to wrap things up here, Matt, anything you'd like to plug? I know Matt McCormick on LinkedIn. Anything else that you have going on out there?
Yeah, Matt McCormick on LinkedIn. I think on Instagram I'm McCormick2323. Feel free to just follow me. Shoot me a DM if you want to talk marketing at all. I'm more than happy to support you in any way possible. I'm testing all sorts of different AI stuff. So if anyone wants to be beta testers for anything that I'm trying to build out here, feel free to shoot me a DM and I'll be more than happy to give you a free subscription there on anything that we're trying to build.
Awesome. Yeah, students, young pros. There you go, right there. And another guest. All you have to do is DM them on LinkedIn and let them know you listen to the show, and you have a director who's going to respond to you, and maybe even get to do some side work with. So I would definitely say reach
Yep.
out to Matt and hit him up. He's been awesome. Our conversations even before the show were awesome, and just an all around awesome human being who wants to help out the younger generation. So thanks again, Matt, and that kind of wraps things up. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.